Now installing and operating Cisco LAN switches. So in Cisco Catalyst switches, we may have 24 or 48 RJ45 UTP 10, 100 or 1000 based port. So this is the speed. So UTP means unshielded twisted pair cable. So they support 10, 100 or 1000 ports. Ports can auto-negotiate the use of 10 base T or 100 base T or 1000 base T. And switches can also have 2 or 4 10, 100, 1000 interfaces on the right hand side. Physical connectors are also referred to as interfaces or ports. That means sometimes we say this is a port, sometimes we say interfaces. And especially when you configure this switch, in the configuration time, we need to say like interface. Interface fast Ethernet 0/1 or interface gigabit Ethernet 1/1, like that. Interfaces are numbers x/y, x equal to module and y equal to interface number. So this is the module. Module may be in one switch you may have one module and number on the right hand side. This is maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this kind of numbers, switch port numbers we have. So we use interface and ports, both words interchangeably in many different areas. Now accessing the Cisco iOS CLI. So that means CLI means command line interface and iOS is like internetworking operating system. That means if you want to configure any Cisco switch and routers, you need to log in or access the CLI. So you can access the CLI with console. Initially, we need to use the console port. Console port is a physical port built specifically to allow access to the CLI. So that means if you have a brand new switch or routers and if you want to configure that one, you need to use this console connectivity. And every router or switch, they will have this console port. So you need to connect your PC to console port. Let's say this is your PC. These days we are using the USB cable. So you connect this console cable with your PC and on the other side, connect with your switch. After that, from the PC, we need to use some emulated software called PuTTY. PuTTY is a free tools we can download and install in our computers. And then from that PuTTY, we'll be able to access our switch via console cable. So initially, when you have a brand new switch or like, some switch you want to configure from the scratch, so you need to have console cable. And once you do some IP configurations, then we can use Telnet or SSH. Telnet uses IP network, Telnet and SSH. Telnet is not secure, but SSH is secure. Telnet and SSH has the client and server. Telnet server listens on well-known port number 23, and Telnet is not secure, but SSH server listens on well-known port number 22. User can use emulated software as a Telnet and SSH clients, which is PuTTY. SSH encrypts the contents in the message. So initially we need to use console, but later on we can use Telnet or SSH. So majority of the business environment, we are actually using SSH to connect to our Cisco devices. But let's say some critical things happened or you need to troubleshoot, you can't log into the switch, maybe during that time, you can use console cable in order to reset the switch. The console connections or console cable, also known as a rollover cable. And new Cisco routers and switch, they support, USB to USB port. They support the USB ports. So that means maybe you have a new laptop that may have a USB port. From that you can connect with the switch USB console. But old devices, you may have serial connectivity. So there's a converter from serial to USB to serial converter as well. But these days, majority of the cases, you'll see this direct USB console. Now, when you logged into the CLI, we'll be able to see different kind of mode. We have user mode. User mode looks like this, host name, and there's an arrow sign. After that, we can go to enable mode by typing enable. You can go to host and hash. This is called enable mode. After that, we can go to other configurations mode as well. So we have user exit mode, we have enable mode. User mode, you can't do much things, but when you go to enable mode, you can apply many different kind of show commands. And after that, you can go to configuration mode from this enable mode. So from the enable mode, we can go to configuration mode, that is called global config mode. And from that config mode, we can go to interface mode. We can see interface mode, VLAN mode, console mode, and also telnet mode. V2I means telnet or SSH. So we can switch to different mode, and after that we have options. If you'd like to go back to previous mode, we can say exit and we can go back, exit, we can go back like that. But if you type end from any of this interface, if you type end, it will take us all the way back to enable mode. So usually it's work in this way. Hostname, we say hostname config, we call it global config mode. So none first mode after the config terminal, and hostname config line, that means you logged into the line where we may have console connections or like V2I connections. So 0 indicating 1 connections, 0 to 15 indicating 16 connections. If you'd like to log into the interface, you can see config dash if means interface. We can then type interface command, and you can see the VLAN mode. That's a VLAN mode. You can put VLAN number as well. So these are the different kind of mode we have in our switch and also in our router environment. So all this command we are looking at, they are applicable to both switch and routers. And inside our switch, we have all this kind of memory. We have a RAM. RAM is running config file, is stored over there. We have a ROM. ROM stands for read-only memory, stores a bootstrap programs. Like that means boot file will store inside the ROM. Flash memory. So operating system will store over there inside the flash memory. NVRAM is a non-volatile random access memory. So startup configuration file will store over there. Startup configuration file means some file you saved inside your router or switch. Those file will go to NVRAM. NVRAM is similar to a hard disk, PC hard disk, where you can store the informations. So there are some other configurations file we can use once you logged into the switch. Let's say we can save the configurations file to NVRAM, say copy running config to startup config. Or if you'd like to see the show command, we can say show running config, show startup config, etc. Use the erase startup config if you'd like to remove some of the steps from the startup config file. If you'd like to delete something, like delete VLAN dat file, sometimes VLAN configurations, old VLAN configurations. If you'd like to remove, maybe need to apply this command. If you'd like to restart or reload our router or switch, you can say, or we can apply reload command. If you'd like to change our default switch or router name, we can say host name. After that, we can put a name we want to change. So these are the fundamental things we need to know about our switch and router, so how they functions, how they works. So later on, we're going to look at how to configure all these things. Another important command we have called show version. With the show version command, from the switch or routers, we can actually get a lot of important informations. So this command lists the iOS versions, time since the last load of the iOS, number of fast Ethernet interface, number of gigabit Ethernet interface, and switch model number. So in order to get the switch info, we can use this one. We can apply no IP domain lookup. So this is one of the command we can apply. Sometimes our switch or router, they try to translate some word or letter which it doesn't know. So during that time, it will stop the activity. So that means you'll not be able to configure any of these stuff. So to avoid those things, we can apply no IP domain lookup, this command. In this way, your router or switch will not try to translate some of these stuffs. Okay, configuring Ethernet switching. So protecting access to switch. So let's say we have our PC and we have our switch. So we can, if we connect via console, we can set up the console password. If you connect via telnet or SSH, we can set up password over there. Once you're logged into user mode, from the user mode to go to enable mode, we can also apply enable password. So for the remote login, we need to have a secured connectivity. In order to have the secured connectivity, we need enable password. And how to configure this password? Telnet password or console password. Let's say we can change the host name, or we can go to config mode. We can say host name, enable. After that, host name, configure terminal. After that, set up console password. We can say host name config line console 0, password Cisco, and then login, and then exit. After that, set up telnet password. We can say in config mode, we can say line VTY 015. 015 means 16 concurrent connections can be made at a time. So that's why we can put maximum 0 to 15 this connectivity. But many cases we put line VTY 0 to 4 as well. So that means we allow roughly around 5 connections. Password Cisco and login. We can set up enable password as well, like enable password Cisco. We need to be in config mode, then we can set up this enable password. After that, we can create individual username and password as well. Let's say enable configure terminal, then you say username, put Bob, password Cisco. Like that, we can configure individual local username and password to log into our switch. But once we configure this one, we need to assign this password informations inside our line. We can say hostname config line VTY04 and say login local. This login local command is very important. With that, we're just saying that this username and password need to use and someone try to do telnet or SSH.